Morgan, Executive Director of Health and Community Education at Piedmont Healthcare. She is an expert in cardiology and our Healthy Morning contributor. Good morning to you. Good topic here because
Jay.
The heat is not letting up. Maybe a little bit, but for the most part, summer is here. So just talk about why extreme heat is so dangerous for our heart.
When we look at extreme heats that we've been experiencing really this whole summer, it makes your heart work harder. That's the easiest way to say it. Your heart has to work harder. It has to pump more blood, it has to pump faster, and so what that means is the reason that it's doing that is because it needs to get more blood to the surface of the skin such that there's a cooling effect on your skin, that evaporation. That's what's called sweating.
Are there certain demographics that are more vulnerable than others?
Sure. I mean, people who are living in urban areas, we call that the urban heat index, places where there's more asphalt, more concrete, less vegetation, more cars, more exhaust. The temperature can actually be 2 to 6 degrees higher in these areas in the urban heat index. And it's one of the reasons why you have to really be more careful if you live in these areas where the heat is trapped and we're not able to really dissipate it as quickly.
So as far as advice goes, especially for the folks who have jobs that require them to work outside, I'm thinking like construction workers, police officers, etc. What do they need to do to take care of themselves?
And you need to think about, from the cardiac perspective, from your heart perspective, maybe what kinds of medications you might be on. So if you're on a class of medications called beta blockers, there's several of these medications, it can blunt your heart rate and slow it down and therefore make it harder for the heart to get blood and circulation to the skin such that it can dissipate and sweat, and it may be more difficult as well for you to do that. If you are on diuretics, or what we call water pills, makes you lose water. You're more likely to become dehydrated, have lower blood volume. You can also end up with electrolyte imbalances, which can lead to arrhythmias, so your heart starts to beat in an irregular pattern. So you want to make certain that you talk with your doctor, your cardiologist, specifically about the medications that you're on, not to stop taking the medications, but such that you know how to manage it while you're out and what signs to look for.
And I was always alarmed at the amount of heat-related deaths annually in this country.
Amazing.
I know for us in the South, here in Atlanta, we're accustomed to these warm temperatures. We rely on air conditioning a lot, but when I hear about these heat waves in places like Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, where a lot of folks don't have air conditioning, what do you recommend they do to kind of take a break from the heat?
Jay, I was just in Oregon, just in Seattle, in the middle of a heat wave in July, and you're right, many of those buildings do not have air conditioning. People are not accustomed to those types of temperatures, and there's something to be said about being acclimated. So living in the South, we're accustomed to high heat index and humidity, but in these areas they really are not. And so some of the things you need to make certain that you do is that you can be misted. If you can have mist coming on you, that's actually a great way to stay cool.
How do you do that?
If you don't have air conditioning. Well, they have these little
just
fans
personal misters.
that do misters, that type of thing, or you have something in your lawn where you can stand in, but you got to be creative. But you also need to be in the shade as much as possible. You need to hydrate, always the most critical thing. Hydrate, 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 and with water and electrolytes, not coffee, not
alcohol,
tea, not sodas, not alcohol, right? When we say hydration, it's specific to water and things that are really solidly water-based.
It's such an important reminder because heat-related illnesses and death, they just get overshadowed a lot, it seems like. They don't grab as many headlines, but it's good to drive home some awareness this morning. Dr. Jane Morgan, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks.
Thank you. The aftermath of the global tech outage still being felt at airlines still to this day, especially at Delta, canceling and delaying thousands of flights as it struggles to restore operations. Next hour, we'll be joined by a Delta passenger who is still stranded.